Welcome everyone to today's Bluelock webinar. Thank you for joining us. We are very pleased to welcome our special guest today, DECA Financial Services CIO, Kevin Schoenrock. He's going to talk about how his organization reduced DR costs by more than 50% while increasing reliability and simplicity with their solution. A few housekeeping things to cover before we get started. Please feel free to submit any questions or comments you have throughout the presentation. You can use the chat tool or the question and answer panel within the WebEx tool. Our strategy is going to get through the bulk of the story first and cover as many questions we can at the end, but please feel free to submit your questions throughout the entire event, and we'll cover anything that fits in during the event and then capture the rest at the end. If you're tweeting about today's webinar, please use the hashtag BLRaaS, and other Twitter handles are posted on the slides as well. We are recording the presentation, and you'll get the video as well as a copy of the slides within the next few business days. Don't forget to stay tuned at the end of the webinar after the questions portion. At that point, we'll reveal the winner of the iPad mini from the attendees still with us. And today, I'm going to introduce our speakers to you. We have DECA Financial Services CIO, Kevin Schoenrock, and Bluelock Chief Technology Officer, Pat O'Day. The webinar portion is expected to last 30 minutes, followed by questions. During the session, Kevin and Pat are going to talk candidly about the catalyst behind DECA's need for DR, savings they discovered with RaaS compared to traditional solutions, how RaaS fits into the bigger cloud strategy picture, and what the architecture of the solution looks like. So with that, I'm going to step out of the way and hand the reins off to Pat, who will introduce Kevin to everyone.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Diana. One of the things we really want to dig into is why DR was important. So regardless of what the solution might be or the different approach or architecture options that are out there, I found in my own journey that every company has a different way that they get to DR, and they define it a little bit differently, so we're going to try and open that up for you. And fortunately, Kevin's here live to explain it in his own words.
All right, I'll start with a little background about DECA Financial Services, which is the company where I function as CIO. We're a accounts receivable management company. We work nationally and are licensed in all 50 states doing collections. Our business is primarily call center and database driven. We have a small IT team on site, help desk support, and we do all of our production in the cloud at Bluelock currently. That provides us great support, good response time, and has been instrumental in our ability to grow and expand our operations. The other piece that helps us with is in our compliance. We have a lot of compliance standards that we have to meet, and our security has to be very strong to meet those standards. We found that having our production in the cloud with Bluelock provides all those assurances both to our clients and to our auditors, as the case may be.
Auditors.
Yeah, that's always.
They're fun. They're great people.
Yeah, they're doing their best.
Yes,
I like to say
they are.
So it's always worked out well for us.
Yep. So clearly, security, imagine uptime in general, really important. But you wanted to go that extra step and really get into disaster recovery. So what was the thinking there? What were the risks that you worried about?
Well, one of the, it's true in every business, but even more true with our business that time equals money. The amount of uptime that we have on our systems is critical for us to reach our goals that we promise to our clients. So every day is mission critical for us. Every hour that we have any kind of downtime, we put our company at a lot of risk. Anytime that our data isn't protected and available, causes that downtime. And so it was really critical to us to have a robust disaster recovery plan that we could trust, and that would allow our clients to trust us in return.
So you share what you're doing with your clients, a selling point.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely,
Right? Okay.
Absolutely. It's important that they know that their data's in good hands, that it's secure, and that it's going to be available. The benefit of us not having an on-site data center, the benefit of having our data in a bunkered data center away from our facility is great. However, if we didn't have a good piece on the other side to back that up, in case of a critical outage, in case of a disaster, we couldn't say with confidence that we'd be able to perform our tasks as contracted.
And this is a competitive space, right? You don't, a lot of IT organizations, they support one company, and they start at the beginning of the year with a list of, here are the 10 projects, and here's the amount of budget that we have. But you're kind of living off of how successful the business is, because you have to go and earn.
Absolutely.
You have to keep earning the business that you've already been given, but you also have to go earn new business, and the technology's key. Is that?
Absolutely. We need to be able to grow. We need to be able to, as much as we'd like to anticipate what our needs are going to be.
Right.
It proves pretty difficult in our industry, because all our clients have different needs. It's not a set need. One client comes to us with a small set of collectibles, and we would be glad to do that. We work with them, but we also might have a large client come in, and we need to be able to say that we can do it. And
it's different time durations.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. And so our needs vary. I'm glad to say that generally it's been an upward trend.
Right.
Every January 1, we look back and we're happy. So that's been great. It's just been important to us that we have our business in line with the compliance, and our business moving and working every minute.
Yep. Perfect. So, were there, tell us a little bit about the application. What does it support? It sounds like there's a call center team that uses it. Your customers access it.
Absolutely. We run a collection platform that manages and handles all the records that we bring in from our clients. So we have a major database piece that we perform analysis on constantly. We run all those analysis on the production servers at Bluelock, accessing them remotely. Loading and unloading files is one of our daily processes. Those files being sometimes up to millions of records at once. The small files and the millions of them make our data really sensitive. It's sensitive to change. It's sensitive to reorganization. We're constantly running analytic tools to try to create subsets of this data. So the integrity of that database that feeds our voice over IP based call center, and all those calls are actually routed through the Bluelock facility as well. We have a hardware dialer at that facility currently. We're in the midst of making some changes, but for now, that's how we call. Every single call, both inbound and outbound from our facility, comes through Bluelock's facility, and we needed to make sure, looking forward, that we can have continuity in that, no matter what would come our way, no matter what risks we would be facing.
And no matter what, right? So if you would add some color to that, I know the Bluelock platform there's a lot of fault tolerance in the hardware, 2 servers, multiple power supplies, all the production grade things you would take out of a modern cloud environment today.
Yeah.
But that's not perfect, right? Things still go wrong. What were one or two of the things that you hypothetically can see? Hopefully that never happens.
Right.
Table here so we can.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, our risk is, obviously the same risk that any facility might have. That power outages, storms, cataclysmic earthquakes, fire from above, whatever you'd have. There's your classic.
Those acts of God that are in every.
Right. Yeah. The acts of God in air quotes. So you've got that. But for us, a lot of it is potential mishandling of our data. One wrong move. And probably it would end up being 3 wrong moves, but, for simplicity's sake, one wrong move, and then all of a sudden, critical data sets that came from our clients could be corrupted, could be, misallocated, could interrupt our process.
It could going to a tape. At that point, it's not ideal, right?
It has to be a quick recovery.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be able to make that recovery as fast as possible back to that point in time where everything was okay. Rolling back on a tape backup, or even a local storage. Trying to put everything back into place the way it's supposed to be, that's a long process. That's a thick run book to make sure that everything's right, and then to have the confidence that it's right. When we go back in time, when we run that process and try to get back that half hour that we were scrambling, trying to make that go back could take days.
Yep.
To be sure.
Yep. We've seen that. We've had. Some people through software upgrades, sometimes database updates, where something just went wrong, despite all the testing and everything that they typically will do. And it was actually easier to fail over to the DR environment with recovery as a service than it was to try and actually keep going and recover the production environment, which is a different paradigm than I think where we've been in IT historically. Correct,
and that was one of the big selling points for us when we were looking at our DR options. The fact that we could press the button, so to speak, and that we could switch our environment. We could get back that way, and then fix what we needed to fix.
Right.
And then but we could still operate while we did that. That's ideal. And without a lot of, you wouldn't want to say permanent, but without a lot of scaffolding around it.
Right.
So to speak. We wouldn't need to prop all this up and then get it going and then try to, work within that environment. With this RaaS offering, we have a fully operating environment, and one that we can count on because it was the environment that we had at a specific period of time.
Yeah,
we knew it worked.
It's not really a backup environment. It is a clone of production.
Full production environment, and that's something that it's, I'd say it's invaluable, but it's not quite invaluable. There's definitely a value to it. You can put a number on it when it comes down to our clients, and us being able to say that we're staying up, and us being able to get back to work. Time's money, and there's a value to it.
So you talked about, we kind of got into talking about recovery as a service, but that wasn't originally where you started. You were looking at more of a traditional co-location model, renting some cabinet space, buying some hardware, and a lot of people even today still do that. But you made a different choice.
Well, that's that was the conventional wisdom. That's what you have to do. What we have a tradition in our company of not just following traditional wisdom. Obviously, we do all our production in the cloud with Bluelock in the first place, so we were open-minded to that type of managed services concept. We've embraced it, and it's been wonderful. When it came down to looking at DR, the initial push was to do it traditionally. Let's build out our own environment in a co-located facility. Let's purchase the servers or lease them. We looked at both.
Right.
But servers that we would own, manage, run, update, upgrade. All right. So those are all things that we looked at. Looked at services that would let us replicate our servers. That we'd be purchasing licenses separately for, managing separately. Looked at the resources that we need to be able to manage that, experienced resources, because this isn't something to mess around with. I wouldn't put our tier 2 guys on managing that process. I'd need somebody, if not full-time, then at least somebody that there's a resource that I'd be paying for on a monthly basis to be able to manage and assure me that everything's working fine, or if something goes wrong, fix it. Then we would do a full replication, and we'd be replicating our database, our servers and our databases, and all our collaterals, all our machines that we're running at Bluelock in our own environment.
So did you have a sense of what, I know everybody's curious based on the title of the webinar, what the numbers actually were, but before I reveal did you have a sense of what the two approaches would cost, or I know you're on the other side of it now?
Well, we got all the way down the path to where we had, we did our due diligence, so to speak. We worked it through and to find out how much it was going to cost. The total cost that we were looking at just to implement it, just to get it out there, get it set up, get the first replication done, the labor and equipment we were looking at it between $250,000 and $275,000, and that's and for our size company, and for any company, that's a lot of money, but for our size company, that's a really big deal. I mean, we were ready to do it, though. That it's something you have to have. These days, if you don't have something like that, if you don't have a good disaster recovery plan, then you're too much of a risk. At least in our environment, that data needs to be secure. That data needs to be accessible. We need to know that we need to know that we can go back, or we need to know that we can go over. This is more like it, to that disaster recovery environment, and keep moving. So while it was a tough number to swallow, we got a big glass of water, and we were ready to swallow it, right? Yeah, like a multivitamin, a big multivitamin. We were going to get it down, and we were going to have to do it. So we had started meetings talking about it. We got some quotes from some outside firms that would want to implement it, and the best quote that we had was $250,000. Now that didn't include our management costs. That didn't include the ongoing rental of the space. That was to get it going. So when you ended up breaking it all down, over time, obviously our costs go down, but over the period of the contract that we ended up doing, we'd be looking at around $7,000 a month to keep that going and to be comfortable with that setup. And that is with it all running smoothly without a hitch. And we know how often that happens, not nearly often enough. So that's the cost we were looking at. We were looking at a pretty big initial and ongoing expense, even when amortized it over the life of the equipment, which then at some point we would need to replace and upgrade, and then continue on with these large expenses indefinitely.
Yep. So I know one of the things that was exciting when we talked about this in preparation for this webinar was that the numbers are critical, right? Because it's a business, and that money can be used for other things, and it's really a CIO's job to one, get the right solution in front of the business, but then purchase it in an economic way, right? You can't just run willy-nilly. IT is not a revenue generator for most businesses, so
Definitely not.
And you did a very good job there, as we can see on the slide. But the thing that I thought was interesting was you found that the services were different, and there were some capabilities you were going to pick up along the way that kind of went above and beyond the original set of requirements. So what comes to mind there?
Well, one of the things that we looked at, and probably the biggest driver behind cost, was recovery time. Our ability to take what would normally be a process, and very common process that would take days at best, 24 hours in the ideal world, but that just, when you're dealing with people and all the pieces that would have to fall into place that we wouldn't have hired full time. When we had to deal with all that, we potentially would be looking at days to get that full environment up and running, make sure that everything was legit, check out our connections, check out our data, do our apples to apples comparison, and then have it go live. We were optimistically looking at 24 hours, and I continually, in the process where we were discussing it, tried to set expectations lower, because I know how it works,
Oh, the 24 hours
yeah.
might be the goal, and you might design that way, but that probably wouldn't be what you
It wouldn't happen. I mean, anybody who's ever done an IT project in a hurry knows that there's no such thing, that it's going to take longer. Double your time and then add a few hours, and you'll probably be closer to what's really going to happen. So, but we, once again, just looking at the traditional way, we were willing to accept that because that's what's standard. That's the conventional wisdom.
Yep.
It takes that long to get back. When I learned that we could be fully switched over and running in a 4-hour window with the RaaS service, that's a game changer. I mean, that changes everything. Now, when you look at that, and when then I can take that info and give that to clients and to the other members of my management team who tend to, see IT as a black box where they hope that everything that goes in comes out the right way. They don't really want to know about it, and they certainly don't want to spend on it. But when I can tell them that they can get something back out of there in 4 hours, no matter what happens, no matter what goes down, I mean, that's huge. That's bigger than that. Us being able to guarantee that and to know that we're going to have that uptime is very valuable.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying this will be the new expectation. So whether it's
right.
A lot of leadership in companies, they're used to services like eBay and Google that are on consumer services. And I think we all know that behind the scenes they've got really big black boxes with lots of magic going on there to make those applications behave that way. Mm-hmm. So to some degree it's unattainable.
Right.
But that's still what their expectation is evolving into.
Exactly.
And when they look at their own applications that support their own business, why would I not want Google.com, right?
Yeah, I want what they want.
Yeah.
Or what they've got.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's moving to the point that your regular businesses, not your super corporations, can be able to do something like that.
Yep.
It's a small to medium-sized business. This lets us play on the same playing field as some of these companies that have multiple data centers scattered about the country and the world, and redundancy because they can afford it. I mean, they've got more. Google's got more cash to burn than we do, but we can have a similar kind of service. We can do that by partnering with Bluelock on this. We've been able to sort of get closer to their playing field. We may not ever have the level that they do, but we don't need it. This is better than good. We're happy with this. We know that we can have response immediately. We know we can have a response 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Always have this accessible. Always know that it's ready to go. That gives us confidence. Plus, it continues to meet the same compliance standards, the same regulatory requirements that we have already gone through when we first chose Bluelock to be our production environment and to host and manage our servers in the first place.
Right, because by the fact that it is a pristine copy of production.
And it stays within the environment that you've created, so we didn't have to do a lot of extended evaluation. We didn't have to look at, when we were looking at our traditional co-location kind of a DR model, we would have had to go through all those processes, have all that, get all of that, binders of paperwork that prove that, that they also meet these criteria for our different compliance and regulatory needs. And,
right. And you were able to do that in your deployment in 2 cities that are pretty far away. I don't know how far Indy and Vegas are from each other, but it's a couple thousand miles, right?
I wouldn't want to drive it.
Yeah.
Put it that way. But yeah, no, definitely. There's we'd be talking about extinction event to get both of those data centers.
Yeah.
So
I would agree.
at that point, disaster recovery might not be our primary concern.
Yeah.
So that's it's perfect. Having that distance, but then with the availability of these data connections that allow for incredible speed, even across that larger geography. The speed with which that our servers are replicated, even dealing with hundreds of thousands to millions of records between the 2 data centers is also very impressive.
Yeah, I think you were saying the RPO that you've been looking at on the console is usually under 5-10 minutes.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and to be honest, often a lot faster than that. In our testing phases, we've seen we've purposely made big moves and big changes just to sort of test the system, sort of push it a little bit. Let's see how long it really takes, and it beat our expectations every time we tested it. Every time we moved a block of 250,000 records and then checked it on the other side. Man, I mean, it's very impressive.
It's pretty funny. The pipes are pretty big now, but they're also being upgraded this year. So it's going to kind of go from extreme to extreme turbo speed or whatever.
Yeah, don't blink.
So all positive, it sounds like. But as we all know, once you get actually into implementation, you learn some things. A lot of times, I see we learn how applications really work versus how they worked on paper. And I know you made at least 1 or 2 design tweaks.
Absolutely.
After the fact.
Absolutely.
So what should people be thinking about? What did you do?
Well, one of the things that was an issue for us is that being hosted in the first place, we had our firewall configured to connect to sort of get between the pipe between our facility and Bluelock in the first place. And that firewall is very specifically configured for us, as firewalls should be. And on the other end of the RaaS in Vegas, we chose to add an additional firewall that mirrored our settings. That came at an additional monthly cost, but what that allowed us to do is really get to that button pushing moment of we need to switch.
Yeah, because with the VPNs on all the time, even though the backup environment is off,
right?
You're not worrying about setting up VPN tunnels and pushing IPsec policies.
Yeah. It took our run book down from a 30-page document to a 10-page document, basically.
Right. Yep. Okay, that's a good way to put it.
So it's just it really streamlined that process. So when we're ready to go, and that run book's a really powerful tool for me as a CIO when I'm trying to explain to management, and trying to show them how it works. I give them the 10,000-foot view, and then they feel like I'm talking down to them. and to be honest, I am. but it's that having that run book as a tool for explaining it to them is really, really powerful. This is what we do. This is how we get out of it. And we haven't yet, but I would encourage our sales team to use that as part of their presentation, especially when if they're getting to touch the technical pieces in the client companies. They're not just talking to the business management director, but if they dive into it and get a little bit more of that technical sales piece, I encourage them to use it. It shows how we do it. It shows why. One more reason you should choose DECA besides our amazing collection record.
That makes sense to me. I know one of the things that people struggle with when they go to a service over building it themselves, whether it's for production or your DR environment, is this thought around giving something up, right? Control is the word that we hear come up from time to time, and I think we have both self-service and a managed service, so we try to make sure that if you want more control, that's available, or if you're really trying to focus on other things, which is again what we hear more and more people doing today. There's not enough IT to go around. We can take some of that work on for you. What was your thinking?
Just like everyone else, the part of the reason that part of the reason that you would like a traditional colo kind of DR solution is that you have control. So, same reason that you might want to go ahead and purchase your own servers and hire your own engineers to run those servers and do the maintenance, because then it's under your roof. You've got control. You can make changes when you want on the fly. What we found both in our decision to use Bluelock as our managed services and server providers is that it was better for us on many levels. That we actually had more control by being able to reach out and touch people and techs and engineers that were dedicated to working in that environment. It's always felt like that all the engineers are part of our team. That's a real feather in your guys' cap that. When we reach out for support, we have it, and not just we'll take care of it, push you out of the way, but are you sure that's all you need? Giving us extra insight. We ask for one thing, and it's like, hey, well, what about this? Of course, it's definitely a teamwork here, and I feel the same way when it comes to the DR. I might not be able to go put my hands on those servers per se, and it's a good thing I can't. That's not my expertise, but I know that I can trust the people that can, and it's worth it. Not having to worry that environment's going to stay up, not having to worry about getting that call in the middle of the night, and because nobody's minding the store, is worth it. And to be honest, it really in a cost comparison, it doesn't cost us much more, if more at all, to be able to do that. And the RaaS offering, being able to have that with the same kind of customer service and the same kind of support and the same kind of teamwork that we feel there, is really natural for us. I know that everybody's going to be there. I know that I can count on it. I know that if I have questions that I don't have answers to, that I'm not just going to get pushed off, that I'm going to get a good answer. And if that person doesn't have the answer, they're going to get on it and not stop until they find an answer for me, or we're going to discover one together.
Yep.
So that's what I get out of it, and I don't mind losing control, so to speak.
That's what you're,
because really I'm gaining control.
Yep.
By doing it this way.
The other thing that we've heard is that, particularly in a disaster scenario, is sometimes even if you had control, that you may not be able to get to your computer or to the network. The technology gets disrupted as part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard that often enough that we put procedures in place, and I know you subscribe to this, but any of our clients could have us help them perform the recovery. Mm-hmm. If they were disrupted over the phone.
Absolutely.
So I know this is excellent. We're going slower through the material than we had planned, so hopefully you folks can stick with us. But I will try to. Kevin and I are going to try and pick up the pace a little bit. I know we talked about the compliance already. You picked Indy for production because that's historically where you were. That's where your headquarters are. Vegas is the backup site, but we have people that, particularly in California and Washington State, that'll actually do the opposite for managing the network latency. I'm going to talk a little bit about the solution itself and the architecture, and then ask Kevin to give any color about the specifics. So one of the other decisions that Kevin talked about making was, what was the recovery time objective that was the most important? And, some people we talked about Google as an example of kind of a zero downtime model, but probably ludicrous engineering cost for that. There are other people that have applications, maybe a file server or something, that it just can't be a catastrophic loss, but it can come back in 2 days. So there are a lot of applications like that. And you went with 4-hour recovery time, which corresponds with our 4500 series virtual data center. So for those of you that are familiar with Bluelock, what Kevin's environment is replicating into is actually something we call a virtual data center, and that's what stores his data. So specifically, the other thing that was occurring was that replication today is occurring across a private connection. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Even though the backup environment is over an encrypted internet tunnel, and that helps keep the data private. We're actually working on a project with Kevin. There might be some opportunities to make the replication even more efficient, because there's TW Telecom has some new network products that just came out this year that are really what I call more cloud-enabled network technology. So we're trying to get that worked out. Solution-wise, Kevin was talking about the recovery point objective being really low. That's because the replication itself that you see here going with the little triangles uses something called continuous data protection. And The typical models are, you'll back the data up once per night, and then you'll try and shove a copy of the backup out to the backup site every 24 hours. So it operates a lot like tape. Some people have technology that does snapshots. So every 15 minutes, every 30, every hour, it'll try and do the snapshot. The trouble with that is you're not doing at the second level, you're doing it 15, 30-minute level. And then that snapshot at time of recovery has to be jammed into the original environment, quiesced, and then brought back online, which slows down your RTO. Continuous data protection is replicating all the time. So the minute that a database record would change, even a single record, you hit file save on a PowerPoint slide, that gets replicated immediately over. When the network, so in the failover process, continuous data protection is running all the time, keeping Vegas up to date. If there is an issue in Indy, the applications are powered up. In Kevin's case, the Bluelock staff actually go into the console and hit the play button, bring the applications back online, and then the traffic is run through the VPN connection over the internet. We support failback as well, which is really critical. I always talk to people, there's a reason they picked their primary data center location. And it could be other technology that's there, proximity, latency, but there's a reason. So most people, when they use the DR site, they want to get back to production pretty quickly. So the good news is continuous data protection works in the other direction. As soon as the production site's back on, let's just say it was a power outage, for a day, it comes back, all those changes that happened in the last 24 hours are replicated back over, and then power the apps back up, and we switch the traffic to go back over the TW Ethernet connection, and everything's fine. And what's super cool about it is the minute that happens, it starts replicating back to Vegas. So you're never without production. You're basically always running with two sites in the solution. And if you're going to be down for a few days, or if your outage is a few days, being able to put your DR site back up is really important. Diana, how are we doing on time?
If we just have a couple more things to wrap it up, then we'll head into questions.
Okay, perfect. So Kevin, the last thing I have here is just to sort of get your thoughts on what's next. So I know you did, you have some testing, network thoughts you had.
Yeah, we're talking about making more redundant connections between our environment and, to be honest, all our environments. One of our major vendors has their own data center in Kansas City that we access right now through the Bluelock facility. We are going to, like you said earlier, talk to TW Telecom and explore some options on creating sort of our own WAN, so to speak, a cloud-based, burstable network connection between all the facilities that we house our data in. Perfect. Making the world a little bit smaller, and then running some extreme tests. Actually, doing a full-on disaster drill, if you will. That's something that makes me very nervous, but excited at the same time because I can't wait to see what happens. At the same time, I can't wait to see what happens. So that's just going to be sort of exciting.
And when you say that, so I know that you tested the application.
Applications are fully tested. We know that those applications replicate.
But this is business process, people, all that.
This is
the real deal, right?
Yeah, this is phones. This is calling. This is keeping everything running. Now, yeah, like I said, the most critical pieces are our applications and our data, and we know that those replicate. We know that those servers are communicating. We can run our processes, our daily processes, in Vegas in our testing phases. We know that. What we haven't yet gotten to, because of some of our network needs that we're addressing as we speak, is a full-on calls through the Vegas facility, and I'm really excited to see it happen. There's, it's just a matter of some infrastructure, because from what we see and what we know, there won't be any problems doing it. It's going to be seamless. So so we're looking at some different ways of making that network happen, continuing to grow our strategy. And the one last point that I would make that's so brilliant about the solution is, as our production environment grows, the recovery environment grows in parallel. That's beautiful for us. And in the traditional model, you're add a server, add storage, add storage.
If you remember.
If you
right. That's what we
exactly. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I'm excited about the fact that I don't have to worry about that at all. So.
Yeah,
that's great.
When we first built this, we, just like you, we had a set of design requirements we were aspiring for to try and to kind of make it a modern, never foreseen recovery solution.
Yep.
But we picked up capabilities along the way, and that was one of them where I don't know if we took it for granted or we just didn't think about it that way, but the idea that production can kind of ebb and flow and shrink and grow, and the RaaS environment just responds.
Exactly.
It keeps going. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very nice.
All right. Question time?
Yep, we've got a couple questions. You guys covered a lot already, so we'll weed the ones out that we've already gotten answers to. But the first question is actually for Kevin. How did DECA approach the DR requirements definition? Was it a business impact analysis that was performed to kind of define and justify the scope and level that you ultimately went with?
It was definitely business focused. Okay, most of it, and business and compliance focused. So when we ran our analysis, we had to look and see, first of all, how, with the business continuity, how can we get our critical processes in place, prioritize our process, what could we do, and what order would we need to recover it in. The second way we had to look at it was from a compliance standpoint. We are as a financial firm, we're under some pretty strict compliance and regulatory requirements. That was probably the most important piece for us, because that's without staying in those guidelines, we can't operate. So that's how we looked at it at first, and those were the analyses we did, and then we looked at equipment and how can we make those things happen.
Mm-hmm. How much did you have to sell this up, or did the numbers speak for themselves in your particular case?
The requirements, or the need for it already spoke for itself. I didn't have to do much selling to convince that we needed a disaster recovery solution. Everyone knew we did. That it was required. Now, the meeting where we went over the first proposal, the traditional colo kind of stuff, there was a lot of, there's got to be a way to do it for less, and arguments about cutting corners versus doing it right, and is this really the solution we want? Do we really have to spend this much a month? And there's a lot of that, but
what exactly do they mean by required?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what do we have to have? Are you sure we can't put this on an external hard drive? And I'm like, guys, you really don't understand. You really don't. Just Now, but you have to have that discussion with the business leaders, and it's a different discussion. It's a different way of motivating people into something that they need. They knew they needed it. Explaining it, making it simple, and looking at that was sort of looking at the pieces individually is how we approached it.
Mm-hmm. That's great, and great advice for everyone else. That's all the questions that we're going to have time for today.
Okay.
If anybody else had any questions, we'll follow up with you via email or online.